Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us here on the morning show on E. Now, we're all equal in the eyes of the law. We've all heard this saying before, but when it comes to access to justice, what rights do you as a citizen have? What can you be forced to do and what not? Are there any instances where you can make requests of the court? To give us some answers right now, joining us via Skype is Head of Legal Research at LegalWise, George Pelser. Good morning, George.
Morning, William. How are you?
I'm really good, my friend. Listen, let's talk about this. What responsibilities does a court have towards someone appearing before it?
So I think before we get into that and the answer, it's important to note that, as the Constitution says, we all have a right to access to courts. And that means that we have the right to take our dispute, our legal dispute, to a court and for the court or a tribunal or another institution to decide on that in a fair manner. And I think from that's where the main responsibility of the courts come from. So that would be to listen to the matter, to listen to both cases and to apply it on the facts and make a decision that's fair and in accordance to justice. So just on that topic as well, courts are impartial and independent, so they are not supposed to get too involved in a matter. If I use an example, in criminal procedures, usually the court, the magistrate or the judge, depending on in what court it is, may ask some questions for clarity during witnesses giving evidence, but they can't take over the questioning. So that means that they can't go and try and get an answer from someone or to get a specific answer. That's not the duty of the court. That will be either the prosecutor or the accused, or if the accused has a legal representative, that legal representative. So the court cannot enter the arena and get too involved in a matter, but they do have a responsibility to try and get clarity as well where they feel they need it, and in order for them to make the decision, the right decision at the end of the day.
Let's talk about language, George. I mean, what is the main language used in the court system? And are you able to request that your court proceeding be conducted in your home language?
So a few years back, it was announced that the language of record will be English in courts. So that basically means that the court recordings, how the procedure of what's happening in court and the judgment will be in English. And one of the reasons mentioned for that is if a matter goes on appeal and the matter was not heard in a language that's commonly understood by the judges in the higher court, for example, it might be costly because you have to go and translate that judgment again. So what was decided that most commonly English will be understood by the judges on appeal as well. So that's why the judgment must be in English. But it does not take away from the fact that you are still entitled to speak your own language in court. In some instances, even sure you and I, maybe it's better for us to express ourselves in your mother tongue, in your home language. So you do still have that right to request for you to be heard in your own language. So yeah, it mostly English, but you still have your right to speak whatever language you want in court.
So, George, if you do make this request, are all courts equipped to deal with this request, or could it result in a delay in your case?
So generally, courts will have an interpreter linked to a specific court or assigned to a specific court. So in that instance, then, if the interpreter can understand your language and then can speak your language, the matter will continue without any delay. But it might be that you come from a different country or you speak a language that's commonly spoken in that area and the interpreter does not understand or speak that language, then the matter might be postponed for an interpreter to come in to assist with that matter. So generally, courts are equipped with dealing with this matter if you want to speak in your own language. However, it might be that the matter may be postponed for a few days or depending on the availability of interpreters.
Could you then, George, be forced to speak a certain language in court?
No, so you cannot be forced to speak. As I said, you do have a right to your own language, to speak your own language, and it's all linked to you also have the right to a fair trial. So to have your trial done in such a fair manner. So it can be, if you are going to be forced in a specific language, to speak a specific language, and you're not comfortable with that language, it can be to the detriment of your case as well. So you can request, as I said, to speak in your own language, and should it then go on with without your request being taken note of, then it might lead to an unfair trial, which can be taken on review.
And what's the procedure, George? Does this happen before we get into the court or during proceedings?
Yeah, so before your matter even starts, actually, the court will ask, do you want an interpreter? Are you comfortable speaking English or whatever language they're speaking in that court? So they will ask you beforehand, and you will be given the opportunity to say, listen, I want an interpreter. This is the language that I would like to speak.
So, George, if you give an answer in court and then change your version of events after the fact because you didn't understand, do you have legal recourse?
So, as I said, you are entitled to your own language, and it might be that because you're not familiar with whatever language you're speaking in court, it might be that you're confused and do not always understand what's happening. And that's even important. That's even necessary to take note of the importance of a legal representative, maybe. So in criminal matters, you are entitled to your own legal representative. You can appear for yourself, or you can even get legal aid. That is a state-provided attorney. So it's important to have that, to have that middleman to explain to you what's happening, why is it happening, and what is going to happen in your matter to try and make it easier. But if you do not have a legal representative and you're representing yourself and you do not understand exactly what's happening in court, you are entitled to ask for clarity, to ask for some guidance in the sense of, I'm not understanding what's happening. Can you please give me some clarity with just an explanation of what's happening in order for you yourself to know exactly how to conduct the proceedings further. Should that not be given, or you don't have further clarity and it might lead to an unfair trial, as I said earlier on as well, it can be taken on review. It just depending on the circumstances and exactly what happened or why it happened. So it's not generally as clear-cut as to when this will happen, but all the circumstances of the matter will be taken into account to see whether the trial was fair or not.
George, thank you so much for clarifying what some of our rights are as we step into court, right? So if you're not a Legal Wise member, SMS the word JOIN to 41295 and they'll call you right back.